This was never meant to be a headline moment. There was no countdown, no dramatic reveal, no carefully timed press release waiting in the wings. It began quietly, almost unnoticed, with a short message posted at an ordinary hour, written in words so simple that many people scrolled past it at first. Yet within minutes, something shifted. The comment section began to move faster than usual, not with arguments, not with noise, but with voices stacking gently on top of one another, like people arriving at the same place without planning to meet. In an industry where gratitude is often polished, rehearsed, and filtered through layers of strategy, this felt unfamiliar. It did not read like a statement. It sounded like a thought said out loud. And perhaps that was the most unexpected part, because when audiences are used to being addressed as numbers, even a quiet sentence can feel like a shock. Not the kind that startles you, but the kind that makes you pause and realize you are still paying attention. What followed was not driven by algorithms or marketing tricks. It unfolded because people recognized something human in a space that rarely allows it. One short message, no dramatic language, no grand promises, yet it reached further than many carefully planned campaigns. It made people stop, stay, and read. And before anyone realized it, a moment that was never designed to travel far had already gone everywhere. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a thank you note, but those who read it closely noticed what was missing. There was no distance, no sense of speaking from above. The words did not place the speaker on a stage and the audience below it. Instead, they stood side by side. The message acknowledged effort, patience, and time shared over years, not as a transaction, but as a journey walked together. That subtle shift changed everything. People began responding not as fans, but as witnesses. Some mentioned the first time they had watched the project being referenced, remembering where they were and who they were with. Others admitted they had returned to it more than once, not out of obligation, but because it gave them something steady during busy days. A few added light humour, teasing themselves for replaying scenes or recognizing small details only after repeated viewing. The tone was gentle, almost domestic, as if the space had briefly turned into a living room rather than a public forum. What made this moment powerful was not volume, but texture. Every comment added another layer of lived experience. Together, they formed a collective memory that extended far beyond the original post. The message had opened a door, and people walked through it carrying their own stories. In doing so, they transformed a simple exchange into something communal. This was also where a deeper truth surfaced. For years, conversations around popularity have focused on reach, speed, and visibility. But what unfolded here suggested something else entirely. People were not responding because they felt compelled. They responded because they felt recognized. The message did not praise success or highlight milestones. It acknowledged uncertainty, effort, and the unseen moments that make progress possible. By doing so, it gave the audience a role that was emotional rather than numerical. Behind this interaction sat a project that had grown steadily, without noise, relying on word of mouth rather than spectacle. Its journey mirrored the tone of the message itself: quiet, consistent, and patient. It did not rush to impress. It invited viewers to stay. Over time, that invitation proved stronger than any promotional push. The audience did not just watch, they returned. And in returning, they became part of its momentum. What stood out most was how this moment reframed success. Instead of presenting achievements as isolated victories, it positioned them as shared outcomes. The language suggested that progress was built not only through effort on screen, but through attention, trust, and time given by those watching. That perspective resonated deeply, especially in a digital environment where attention is often treated as disposable. There was no attempt to turn this into a lesson, no instruction on how to feel or what to think. The power came from restraint. By leaving space, the message allowed others to fill it with meaning. That choice required confidence. It suggested an understanding that connection does not need to be forced to be felt. As the conversation continued to grow, it became clear that this was not about a single person or a single project. It reflected a wider shift in how audiences engage with public figures. People are no longer satisfied with polished distance. They respond to moments that feel grounded, moments that acknowledge uncertainty alongside success. They look for signs that the person speaking understands the weight of attention and treats it with care rather than entitlement. In that sense, this moment offered a quiet reminder. In a space driven by speed, slowing down can be radical. In a culture of constant performance, sincerity can stand out more than spectacle. And sometimes, the most impactful stories are not the ones shouted the loudest, but the ones spoken softly enough for people to lean in. What happened here did not change the industry overnight. It did something subtler. It reminded people why they stay, why they watch, why they care. Not because they are told to, but because they feel included. Because, for a brief moment, the line between creator and audience blurred, and what remained was something shared. If you have ever found yourself returning to a piece of work without quite knowing why, if you have ever felt seen by a simple acknowledgement rather than a grand gesture, then you understand why this moment traveled so far. It was never about scale. It was about sincerity. And sincerity, when it appears unexpectedly, has a way of moving faster than anything carefully planned. As we come to the end of this story, take a moment to reflect on your own experience. Whether you were part of that conversation or simply an observer, moments like this invite us to slow down and notice what truly connects us. If you appreciate stories that look beyond the surface and explore the human side of entertainment, consider subscribing to Star Watch now. Your support allows this channel to continue sharing thoughtful, real-life narratives that focus on meaning rather than noise. Thank you for spending your time here, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next story.